people see you and they think, wow, this guy just was born, into Trump Tower and got a degree and PhD and was this magic. But you did struggle as a child. Can you talk about some of those struggles and then how you got over that?
Yeah. Well, the first time I took a test, I didn't say that, did I?
No.
The first time I came back from Hawaii and I took my GED test and I took my college entrance test, miraculously guessing with my eyes closed, saying I'm a genius and I apply my wisdom because Paul Bragg told me to say that to help me overcome learning problems. And I said that, I guessed, and somehow passed these two tests. I really felt there was some sort of higher order in it.
And you were 17.
I was 18.
18 at the time.
Just turned 18.
Yeah.
And then I took my first college class, history and English, but history, I took my first test. And I think it was like 50 questions, and I got a 27 result.
Percent.
Yeah, percentile. And everybody else was 75 and above. When I saw that on the outside of the door, I was absolutely humiliated. And I ran to my car and sunk in the car and cried. And I thought, all I could hear is my first grade teacher in my head. Your son will never be able to read, never be able to write, never be able to communicate, never amount to thing, never go very far in life. And I finally turned the keys and I drove home on the side of the road because I was crying and I could barely see. And I kept having to do like this, and I kept on their shoulder a bit. And I finally got home, and I was there in the living room, in the sunken living room, under this Bible stand. My mom had this Bible in this room. And I curled up in that, and I was just sitting there kind of sulking. And all of a sudden, I lost my vision and had doubt about this whole thing about being a teacher, and I thought, I just don't have what it takes. And my mom came home from shopping, and she saw me there. And she said, son, what happened? She hadn't seen me cry in a long time because I left home when I was 13. And she said, what happened? What's wrong, son? And I said, I blew the test. And I said, I guess I don't have what it takes. I'm sorry, I'm apologizing to her because I felt she was encouraging me to try to do the school stuff. And I said, I guess I will never be able to read and never be able to write, never be able to communicate, never amount to thing, never go very far in life. I was just crying. And she just sat there quietly. And then she said something that only a mother could say that was exactly what I needed to hear. She put her hand on my shoulder and she said, son, whether you become a great teacher, healer, and philosopher and travel the world like you dream, or you return to Hawaii and ride giant waves like you've done, because I used to ride big waves, or you return to the streets and panhandle as a bum, which you've also done, because I did that. I just want to let you know that your father and I are going to love you no matter what. Wow. That was... She said it, and at that moment, I knew what love was. She was present, she was grateful, she was certain that was true. There was no gimmick. It wasn't just an incentive thing. It was a mother who had just loved her son. When she did that, my hand went spontaneously into a fist like this. I closed my eyes and I saw the vision of me standing in front of 1 million people, which is the vision I saw the night I met Paul Bragg. Standing on a balcony in front of 1 million people with every major city iconic building in the background as a message for the world. And I said, I'm going to master this thing called reading. I'm going to master this thing called studying. I'm going to master this thing called learning. I'm going to master this thing called teaching and philosophy. And I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to travel whatever distance. I'm going to pay whatever price to give my service of love across this planet. I'm not going to let any human being on the face of the earth stop at me this time. I got up and I hugged my mom. We just held each other for a minute. I went into my room. I got a Funkin' Wagnall's dictionary, and I went to the first page where it says A kind of thing. And I made a commitment that I was going to memorize 30 words a day. I was going to spell them. I was going to pronounce them properly, which was, with dyslexia was difficult. I was going to put them in a sentence, and I was going to be able to express it. And my mom would test me. I asked her, I want you to test me on 30 words a day until my vocabulary is strong enough to pass school. And I grew my vocabulary 30 words a day, did not go to bed at night until I had a perfect response on those 30 words, and grew my vocabulary words, hundreds and then thousands of words, until I was able to read, and I started reading encyclopedias, started reading dictionaries, I started reading everything I could get my hands on, any book I could get my hands on. That's why I wanted books. And I started excelling. And very short period of time, people started asking me if I could teach them. And my teaching began. My first student I ever had was a 375-pound Afro-American woman who saw me doing yoga and asked me to teach her yoga. And I thought, whoa, 375 pounds? And then a young guy from Persia asked me to teach him how to meditate. Then all of a sudden, the whole class got out and said, John, I want you to teach us mathematics. because I was learning how to do algebra. And this was the most amazing things to actually have somebody listen to me.
Wow.
To actually think that I was intelligent enough for somebody to want to hear me. That was like a dream. And after that one night, after somebody whispered to this other guy, said that Demartini, he's a freaking genius. Because that's the affirmation that Paul bragged. He said, if you say this affirmation, I'm a genius and I apply my wisdom every single day for the rest of your life, sooner or later the cells of your body will tingle, so will the world. And I started saying it, and I'm seeing some results of that. And that night I went back and I put literally 24 hours worth of statements and typed them up so I could stay, so I could fill my day with nothing but how I want to see my life. Because I realized that if I fill my day with the highest priority actions, the highest priority statements I could do, my life changes. And it has. And those statements are now my realities. So that really made a difference and started my speaking career and my educational construct. By the time I was at the University of Houston, I had 100 to 125, 150 people, sometimes 400 people around every day under the trees, because I was doing my little yoga there. And they'd gather around. And then when I went on to professional school, I had classes every night, 7 nights a week. And I just never stopped. I had a dream to continue to grow my knowledge and share it and try to find the most universal principles I could get, the most universal laws I could get, to build a foundation of something that I knew would make a difference to help the development of consciousness and to master the awareness and potential of a human being on the planet. And so I've been doing that, and I'm just as inspired today, as you can see,
I could
as
tell.
that day.
Why so emotional when you think about that time? You know?
Because that was an absolutely essential moment in my life of a relentless pursuit of the divine master plan in my life. There was no turning back. When you get no turning back, there's a certain thing that human sovereignty and divine providence join together. Free will and predestination join together. Necessity, continuity join together. Determinism and indeterminism join together. And now you're working with the universe, the kind of thing. It was almost like I don't know, it was impossible for you not to fulfill your mission at your destiny.
Did that feeling just come to you, or did you manifest it out of all that frustration?
It started happening when she said that. It just started coming out of me.
Okay.
I think it's innate in everyone. Because in the breakthrough experience, when I teach that program, I do everything I can to get people to get to that state. Because if they get that state, they don't need me. They don't need anybody. They've got their own soul.
Right.
I'd rather have the whole world against me than my own soul, as the old proverb says. I'd rather have people capture that so they're intrinsically inspired from within, and they don't need motivation out. I don't need motivation.
Right. That's what we need the whole world to have.
Well, if you're doing, you're engaged, you're productive, you're contributive, you're a humanitarian, and as a result of it. So,
if everyone in the world was that way, would this be a 100x experience being in this world?
Well, that's a little idealistic, because you can't have everybody a cook, you can't have everybody the CEO. You got to have layers of deontological duty processes as stages of awareness. You know, the Buddha says, I will teach them the illusion until they're ready for truth. You know, when you're in elementary school and you come into science class, you see at the front of the class little balls, you know, hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, and you go all the way to uranium. And each one's a little larger because they're orbiting, orbitals going up. And you see these little models of blue and red and white balls and sticks, and you think an atom's a little ball. And you think of a little ball, right? And then you go on to high school and you find out the Bohr atom. The Bohr model says electrons are going around protons and neutrons, and they're just in these little orbitals, and you think, oh, well, it's sort of a ball. It's like an orbiting system that gives rise to shells, right? Then you go on to PhD, or your college level, and you find out it's actually complex mathematical numbers with square roots of -1 systems and Schrödinger's equations and probability distributions, and you find out that it's actually something you can't tangibly put your hands on. It's an abstraction of mathematics. And then you realize, it's not exactly what I thought. It's not this tangible, concrete thing. But I had to be taught that illusions till I was ready for truth. And then you find out in your PhD that the point source of an electron would have infinite energy. And so they have to renormalize it with mathematics, because it's not even a complete model. There's flaws in the model, but it's the best we got. And then you realize that we have to live in a mystery at the real truth. And most people don't want to live in the mystery. They just want to be told what's history and what we believe, so they don't have to think, because it's scary to have to think and be in the uncertainty and confusion of having to think. So we have to teach the illusions till people are ready for truth. And we do that in theology and politicals, and every field has that. But as you move up the evolution of any discipline, you eventually get to those abstractions, and it's almost metaphysical. And very few people are willing to go that far. Most people just want to be told the illusion. And so most people live there, and that's why people have different strata.
And that's why hard work and practice and discipline can get you to that higher level as well.
And the more you go, the more you access the magnificence.
The more you go where? Into that.
Into the depth. So the greatest worshiping in religiosity, as Einstein said, with holy curiosity, he said, is to not sit there in anthropomorphisms and subordinate to something and living in fears and guilts and punishment reward systems. Those are the lowest levels of the animal banal states of consciousness. But the highest level is actually the realization that there's a hidden order in the magnificence in this system. And the more you probe it, the more you get a glimpse, and it just brings awe to you. And it was Einstein who said that it's enough for me on a daily basis to sit in awe and contemplate this magnificent intelligence, this panpsychic intelligence that's permeating the universe. And if I can do that each day and get a glimpse of it with an inspiration, then I've done my job. The greatest worship is the honoring of this magnificent design that we're living in, that is still a mystery to cosmologists and every field of endeavor. And exploring that is absolutely it's inspiring.